Hello, friends. How are you doing? It's a great pleasure to be in front of you all today again, and I'm thankful that you're watching this video. A lot of students come to us and ask as to, how do we decide that, we should take design as a career? I very strongly keep telling them that, there are certain attributes that you must have in order to take design as a profession and to pursue your career uh, in this particular field. So I am going to talk to you about these attributes which I think should be there in you, and they could be a little less, they could be a little more, doesn't really matter. But if you think that yes, you're good in 60-70% of them, and you feel like doing them, and you're able to do things like that, yes, you can go ahead with design as a profession. Before that, I would like to tell you that NID has n number of courses, and when I talk about attribute, I'm going to talk about each course as to what kind of attribute, what kind of characteristics, what kind of sense you should have, so that it becomes easy to pick up the program eventually. Because students get confused, sir, we've got through NID, but now what course should I pick up? So if you subscribe, I'll in my upcoming videos going to tell you which course is suited for you, and what is the basic content, and what is this course actually talking about. So coming back to the point, I'm going to share some of the attributes which could be helpful to you in order to take this decision. So first is sketching. So sketching is a very important role when you talk about design as a profession, because it's a mode in which you're going to write or express, not write, but you're going to express your thoughts on a piece of paper, and going to convince to the other person that this is what my thinking is, and this is how I'm going to visualize the whole thing. So sketching is very important. Then you have something like if you have an out of the box thinking. So when you say out of the box thinking, is that when you talk about a pencil box, for example, everybody thinks that pencil box is used just to keep the pencils. But if you can have pick up n number of uses of the same thing, this is one way of thinking out of the box, which is something which is really required by this kind of a program. Is your mind continuously asking questions as to why a particular thing is being going on in a particular way only? Are there ways to break that? Are there ways to kind of explore it more? Are there ways in which we can really do the same thing in different ways? If your mind is regularly and continuously popping up questions, and it is giving you ideas, that's another attribute where designer has to think, or how he has to think about a particular thing. Then you have something called scale and proportion. Now scale and proportion plays a very very important role. I mean, if you see, you have a game of Jenga, which is a small cuboid that you play with. If you enlarge that same cuboid, it can act as a electric pillar. So scale and proportion plays very very important role as to how you perceive that, how you visualize it, how you conceive it, and finally how you really apply it to something. So when you just change the scale and proportion, when you visualize it, when you scale it down to 50%, increase it to 1000%, your mind should be able to read that very fast. This is how. And not only in 2D, if let's say if it's a cuboid or a cube, then all the three dimensions are going to scale up or scale down. So scale and proportion is something which is very very important for you to visualize and understand the overall object in totality. Then you have materials, various materials. I mean, various is not the right word. I think there are n number of materials which you have to play with, which you have to use, which you have to live around with, and you have to kind of amalgamate them together, so to bring out some new product, new design, new scheme, anything. So understanding of material, not only in the form of its shape, but also in terms of its properties to an extent that when I apply paper to a fevicol, it sticks, but when I use a plastic to a fevicol, it doesn't work that well. So that's a property of a material. So you need to understand how a particular material is behaving with other material, because you cannot kind of think of a material only in isolation. So it has to be um, uh, gel up of things. So when I, say materials, it also means a lot of mediums, so when I talk of mediums, you can have pens, you can have crayons, you can have acrylic colors, you can have stencils, you can have watercolor, you can have spray, you can have paints, you can have n number of things, which can then be applied on a particular surface of a particular texture, of a particular finish. So when that happens, and when you start getting that understanding, it is something that is really, really an attribute which is required by any discipline of design, most of the disciplines of design, rather, I would like to say. Thereafter, when I talk about all these things, there is one major thing which you need to understand, and that is the context. When I say context, it doesn't mean that if I'm sitting in a room, I'm in a context. But when you make a product, when you make a thing, when you make something, it is going to be used by a particular person. It is going to be used for a particular reason, for a purpose. So ultimately, you have to understand the context. So only if your context is clear, everything falls into the place. So that is very, very important. So these are certain attributes which I personally feel should be a part of your personality to pick up design as a career. And as I said at the initial part of the video, I am going to come up with each program of NID and what kind of attributes does a person should have in each of these programs. So I request you to kindly subscribe the channel so that I can update you on the new videos coming up. Thank you so much.